Welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked, where passion meets possibility. Here's your host, Meredith Calloway.
Hello, and welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked podcast. I am your host, Meredith Calloway, and I am so excited about our VIP guest today, who is Vicki Freed of Royal Caribbean International. I just can't even imagine how much more excited we could be having on such a inspirational, well-known figure, and inspirational for women in leadership in the travel industry as well. So welcome to the show, Vicki Freed. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Meredith. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all the listeners. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. So the name of the podcast is the Travel Business Unpacked. And so normally on this podcast, I am interviewing people that are travel entrepreneurs that have found a way into this profession of selling travel. And we talk about their journey. We talk about entrepreneurship, and we talk about where they are on their journey and maybe some of the different life situations that might be relative to people that are listening. But today we get to talk about some other fun things and dig a little deeper and unpack the travel industry in a different way. So let's start with you and take us back to the beginning of your career. What was your path into the travel industry, and did you always envision yourself in executive leadership?
That's a really great question. So back when Noah's Ark started is when I started. No, it's been a very long journey. I started when I was 21 years old, right out of college. And all I knew at that point is that I had a passion for sales. And so I never even knew anybody who had gone on a cruise. I thought my grandparents were too young to go on a cruise. The only thing I knew about cruising was the television show, The Love Boat. So it really, when I was in college, I interviewed with everybody who came onto my college campus because I found interviewing to be really fun. It was really sales 101, because if you could pass that first interview and they had a really great home base, you would flown to their headquarters for the second and third interview. So it was really a lot of fun for me. So I got a chance to travel just to the different places that I wanted to go visit, like San Francisco and Los Angeles, where I was from, and I got a chance to go home. I was going to school in Colorado. But I just knew I wanted to be in sales. And I had done an internship when I was at University of Colorado in Boulder, and it was for Boulder's Conference and Visitors Bureau. And I was just getting 3 credits of units of credit. I wasn't getting paid, but I met a woman there who said, when you go home for spring break, you really ought to interview with this travel company called Ask Mr. Foster. And that was Peter Uberoth's company. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll interview. And although I had been looking at other jobs with IBM and Xerox and NCR and a lot of other companies, even as a flight attendant, I got a job offer. I know you're all laughing, thinking she couldn't be a flight attendant, but I would have had a fun job there.
I think you would have made a great flight attendant. I don't think you would have lasted very long, but I think you would, in terms of not having a whole lot of challenge at that job. But
yeah, so I interviewed with the Uberoths. They offered me a job, and then I did come back, and I worked at that time. A lot of travel clubs, a lot of travel agencies had travel clubs, and they had the bank travel clubs. So people would call me who were bank, customers of banks,
Yep.
and they'd say, "I want to go on a cruise." And one day, somebody did exactly that. And he was asking me really hard questions like, what's an inside cabin? And I'm like, I have no clue, but let me find out. So I talked my boss into letting me go to an all-day conference that was hosted by an airline that was just cruise week. It was a full day, and that's where I met Bob Dickinson. I heard 17 different cruise lines at that time speak. And I thought, I want to work for Bob Dickinson. He was such a dynamite presenter. He made cruising sound like fun, and it was for young people. And so I just pursued it and pursued it and pursued it. Believe me, I met him in July, and I didn't get hired as a sales rep until October. But I never stopped, kind of not stalking him, but definitely
pleasantly persistent.
I was persistent. And finally, I think one of my last communications was a telegram, and it said, "My anchor is up and I'm ready to dock with Carnival Cruise Lines. Hope your compass is pointed in my direction." And that kind of did get his attention. But then he finally did hire me as a sales rep. Again, I was 21 years old. I had the
Wow.
most wonderful job serving travel advisors, helping them grow their business. And just through hard work, I kept getting promoted. The only job I ever applied for was that first one. After that, it was just being, somebody who was very focused on helping travel partners. We really didn't call them partners at that point. We called them travel agents, but travel advisors become more successful.
Yeah.
And through that, I had been offered other jobs. I remember I was 27 and I was offered a regional vice president job for another cruise line. And I went to Miami to resign. And Bob Dickinson said, "There is no way you're resigning." And so I had to, really think about, I didn't want to leave Carnival. I didn't want to leave Bob Dickinson, because one thing I've learned in my life is you don't work for a company or a brand. You work for the people.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So I did
Totally
stay at Carnival, had a great career there. Worked for Bob. I went from being a sales rep to a director of field sales for the Western region. And then I got promoted to senior VP of sales and marketing at Carnival. So I actually jumped over the vice president, I guess,
Position.
the position. And so my boss who was the vice president. I now became his boss. So there were some interesting challenges along the way. And then when Bob retired, I jumped ship over to Royal Caribbean because Royal Caribbean reached out to me and said, "We want you on our team." And I never saw myself leaving Carnival, but the opportunities were great. And how lucky am I to have worked for two amazing companies? It's like Coke and Pepsi. They operate their companies differently. They have different priorities, but at the end of the day, I'm really one of the luckiest people in this industry.
So what year was it that you joined Royal Caribbean?
I joined 18 years ago in 2008.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
so the
That
oasis
you jumped ship, pun intended.
Yeah, I jumped ship, yes. And I remember Travel Weekly magazine had a picture of me. They used to do these cartoons. They had a picture of me jumping over a Carnival ship onto a Royal Caribbean ship. And they framed it for me. And I still have that in my home office because it was the cutest little thing, just jumping from one cruise line to another.
So you did a tiny little stint where you were actually selling travel. And then one of your very first roles at a Carnival was a BDM role, right? Basically, you were covering travel agents and representing Carnival to the travel agent or a geographic section of travel agents.
Yes, in California.
So you have quite the exposure to the profession of selling travel. And I'm curious, what do you like from your perspective? How has the industry changed? How has the profession changed? And do you see, I'll start there. How has the profession changed?
Well, it has changed. And I think going from a travel agent to a travel advisor, those words have made the whole change as far as instead of me just booking your travel, and that was what really travel agents did.
Yeah.
Travel advisors really guide the consumer into making the right buying decision. So the role has evolved as the industry has become much more complicated. And it is a complicated sale. And so people need to make sure they have someone on their side of the bench helping them select the right cruise line, select the right stateroom, and really you're the value interpreter. And I think that in the old days, people bought strictly on, the price and itinerary. Now people really want the best ROI on their vacation dollar. And that's the role that the travel advisor can play today in a very strong way. And I think the other big difference is from when I started, everybody was in retail locations. And now there are so many home-based travel advisors and people who are doing this part-time, people who are just getting into this as a second profession, people who are doing it full-time. The variety of types of travel advisors is so much more broad than it ever has been.
So I have a question about Royal Caribbean's philosophy around the travel advisor. I would say from my perspective and my experience that Royal Caribbean is one of the biggest advocates for travel advisors, which is incredibly refreshing to if you are a travel advisor, because we don't get that reception from every single partner out there. And not only do we get that reception from Royal Caribbean, you guys are all in with travel advisors. And I think that's a huge credit to you, because that's really, I feel like that's come from Vicki Freed specifically to support the travel advisor. Where does that philosophy come from?
Well, it actually comes from our leadership. So it does come from, it was originally Richard Fain, now it's Jason Liberty, but it's my boss, Michael Bailey, and it's really our entire philosophy. And the thing I love about working for Michael Bailey is he does not micromanage me. He puts 100% trust in me. And when I tell him we need to do this for the travel advisors, he goes, okay, go for it. You're their representative. Let's do it. And, if you go back to that very dark time in our careers, for those of you who were in this industry during the pandemic. I remember sitting in many, many meetings with Richard Fain and Michael Bailey and saying, okay, what are we going to do so that when we get out of this, the travel advisors are still in existence? And so we came up with several different programs, RCL Cares, and one of them was helping travel agents and travel advisors get the PPP loans. We hired Price Waterhouse. We paid the bills for these consultants to help the travel partners, because we knew that they needed the money to kind of bridge them until we got to the sunshine again. And then we came out with $40 million earmarked for interest-free loans for the travel advisors. Well, who does that? And, we were bleeding a lot of money at that point. Our ships weren't operating, but $40 million, we were paying 12% interest, but we said we're going to loan travel partners money, and they can pay us back 2 years later once we're back into service, and at no interest. And, we even talked about there was going to be a percentage of the travel advisors that would never pay us back. And we were saying, if that happens, it happens. But we always had the philosophy at Royal Caribbean, and this really came from Richard Fain, doing the right thing is the right thing to do. And so he said, these travel advisors have gotten us through our success for over 50 years. We're going to be there now for them. We have the assets and the ability to raise capital and money. So let's share it with them, because we lean on the travel advisors probably more than any other cruise brand to sell our product and to help guide the consumer, again, helping them make the right purchase decision. So we needed travel advisors to make it through the pandemic, and they have in a big way.
Yeah. I mean, one of the lessons learned from the pandemic, which we were saying during the pandemic as a host agency, we kept telling our community, the comeback is going to be better than the setback. And it always is. And this is the greatest setback the travel industry has ever seen. So it's clearly going to be the greatest comeback. And it absolutely was. And we also, it was a blessing in disguise for the travel agent community, because people were looking to travel advisors for advice and information that we were even scrambling to get, but at least we had, with the right relationships, you had one step in front of the consumer and were able to get the right information to them, and all the testing requirements. And oh my gosh, you remember those days. So I
don't want to remember them.
I know. To mask or not to mask, to quarantine or not to quarantine, to test or not to test. And I think so. The one blessing in disguise is that there is definitely an increased demand for the travel advisor community. One of my missions, and one of the reasons why I've written the book that is about to get published, that I've written, is I really want to elevate the profession and to bring excellence to the profession. And so the fact that the travel advisor has, really, there's a lot of dabblers in the profession. The barriers to entry are so low. And so, there's a lot of people who are not committed, who are not doing this full time, who are just dabbling and doing it when it's convenient, and that definitely tarnishes those that are doing a really, really good job. And the fact that you've remained so faithful to those that are doing a great job is a real testament to the brand and the leadership. So I want to commend Royal Caribbean on that, because I can understand the frustration from the partner side with the travel agent community, because we do have, people that are really weighing it down and bringing the reputation down.
We call them hobbyists. So they're,
Right.
It's a hobby. Some of them just come into the business to book their own travel. But hopefully, out of some of these people, they decide they got the bug and they want to go with it. And then they start bringing their friends and family on group cruises. And it's all good. We're so fortunate to be in an industry that's a growth industry. There's so many new ships coming into service that we are going to need more and more travel advisors. And if we can get some of these newbies to suddenly wake up and really do something, we're thrilled. I've seen a lot in this industry, and what I see now today is the biggest challenge for travel advisors coming new into the business. Is not really so much the education. Yes, it's complicated, it's hard, you've got to get knowledgeable, but as long as you know how to find the information and you return phone calls and you get back to consumers, that's okay. And then sometimes travel advisors say to me, well, I just don't know how to market. But then when you're part of Gifted, you have a wonderful opportunity to lean on the marketing tools that Virtuoso and that Gifted has for you. So you don't really even have to be a marketer. But what I see is the biggest challenge travel advisors have today is they don't have a wide enough net of prospects to go and market to. You're passionate. You love being in this business. You want to be successful or more successful, but you just don't have enough clients or prospects. And so that's the biggest opportunity as I see it nowadays.
So I like that. That's kind of where I was going. Talk to us a little bit about the cruise industry and some of the, I seem to remember something like 7% of the US population has cruised. It's like a very small fraction of the population has actually gone on a cruise. And so the potential to bring more cruisers and convert people into cruisers is huge. Talk to us a little bit about that opportunity.
Yeah, it has certainly grown over the years as far as the number of people in the population have taken cruise, but it still has the opportunity to grow more. Because when you think about destinations like Las Vegas and Orlando, they're capturing many millions of more people than we are getting as an entire industry, not as just Royal Caribbean brand. And, if you look at the value proposition of what cruising offers between the food and the accommodations and the places that you can go and the entertainment and the activities. At the end of the day, when you look at the price that you pay for a cruise versus a land-based vacation, a cruising is definitely the better vacation value. And we like to think that Royal Caribbean, while we're not the lowest price cruise line in the market, we like to think of ourselves as offering truly the best value in cruising.
Yeah. I've experienced that myself, and I think you guys offer absolute tremendous value. And I also love that you offer a luxury option. The suites option is absolutely a luxury option, and I'm a travel snob, and I will repeat many, many times staying in a suite on a Royal Caribbean ship. Let's talk about some of the sexy stuff. So what is some of the new trends and where Royal Caribbean is going, and because you guys are such innovators too. So let's hear about some of the things that you're most excited about.
Well, certainly the Icon and now the brand new Star of the Seas and soon to be the Legend of the Seas, those are game changers. I mean, the Icon.
You were just on the Star, weren't you?
I was. I just came back 2 days ago. And those ships are game changers. And the fact that People have heard of them, even people who haven't cruised. I was at my dental hygienist the other day, and she says like, oh, the Icon of the Seas, I've heard of that ship, and people know the brands. So I think that that's definitely the buzz. And then what we also did a year ago, we put the Utopia of the Seas, a brand new ship, on short 3 and 4 day cruises. People used to put just the brand new ships on only 7 day and longer cruises, but
Right.
we wanted to introduce new to cruise and new to the brand on a brand new short cruise product. And let me tell you, it has done the job. 2 out of 3 people that cruise on the Utopia of the Seas are either new to cruising or new to Royal Caribbean. And so when you think about all the people that that ship is introducing, it's getting people hooked on cruising, hopefully hooked on Royal Caribbean, or at least one of our sister
From a
brands.
marketing perspective, I
Yeah.
absolutely love that strategy. It's actually brilliant if you think about it, because it also brings the price point down. And so, going from 7 to 3 days, it reduces the price point significantly. It doesn't necessarily mean you're attracting a lower income client. You're just attracting someone who wasn't willing to invest a higher dollar amount. They can, but they didn't know what they didn't know. And so it's more of like a teaser, a taster. And at a smaller price point, they're more likely to be like, let's gamble. Let's see if we like this cruising thing. So that's brilliant. I didn't
Yeah,
realize that was
it's
the strategy.
it is a test drive. It's just a
Yeah.
sampler. And so when people try it, then they come back and they say, I'm ready. I'm ready to go on
Yeah.
more short cruises, or I'm ready to step it up to a 7 night cruise.
Let's talk about in the same vein here, the private island concept. How did that evolve, and how is that going?
Well, we've always had private islands, but many years ago we said, okay, we got to make this really something special, and that's how Perfect Day at Coco Cay came out. The first thing to do was to build a pier, because when you don't have a pier with the waves, you sometimes don't make it in. And so that was a game changer to have the pier. So we have 2 big ships in there at a time. And we built the Cocoa Beach Club, we built the Thrill, the Chill. We wanted it to be truly a perfect day. And so that has been our #1 destination in our entire portfolio of ports of call, is Perfect Day at Coco Cay. And now we're building the Paradise Island Beach Club, which is different than a perfect day. It's a shore excursion, it's a beach club. But that's going to have the thrill, and it's going to have the chill, and the adults area, and the family area, and wonderful cuisine. And so that is really limited to about 1,500 guests during a port visit in Nassau. But we know that many people have been to Nassau before, and so they're going to like something different. And then in
Mhm.
2027, we have Perfect Day Mexico. And we've taken
Ooh.
all the learnings that we have had from Perfect Day Coco Cay, and we're making it bigger and more exciting than ever. It's going to have the thrill, the chill, lots of dining, lots of bars, the Sombrero Bar. But one of the things that excites me about Perfect Day Mexico is it's going to have a lazy, crazy river. And it's complimentary. You're going to be able to grab an inner tube, go all the way around the island
Oh, wow.
in the lazy, crazy river. And if you didn't stop to get off and get a bite to eat or get a drink, if you went all the way around, it's 56 minutes. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. That sounds incredible, actually. That sounds really incredible. What about how do we not talk about Sailor and
Oh,
then
Rover.
thank you. I just talk about, where did that idea come about, and has that been successful? I think it has, more successful than you even expected.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know who Sailor and Rover are, they're 2 golden retrievers. One, Rover, lives on the Icon of the Seas, and Sailor, the brand new sister to Rover, she's on the Star of the Seas, and they are the most loved pets. They're family dogs. They of course belong to the ship, but we have a chief dog handler, and I have to tell you, that's
I can't
probably
imagine that job.
that
How
is
do you
the
apply for
best
that
job.
one?
And I just had a coffee talk this week on the Star of the Seas, and I had the chief dog handler for Sailor and Sailor in the suite, and she is just adorable. And the chief dog officer, her name is also Vicki. She loves her job. All she does is take care of this wonderful dog and make sure that Sailor is groomed, fed, exercised. goes to the bathroom and visits with our guests, and it's just so much fun. And I think she's got the second most important job on the ship after the captain is sailor.
Yes, I think so too. And and people are just so responding really, really well to it. I think the fact that each one has their own dog handler puts everybody at ease, that this dog isn't just like lost and running and has no home.
Oh, no, no. And when the dogs are in perfect day at Coco Cay, they get to run on the beach. And
Oh
it
my
is
God.
so much fun to see them running on the beach. And if you haven't seen them and you want to see what they look like, go to Instagram to Chief Dog Officer. And when you go to
Okay.
the Chief Dog Officer, these these little reels will make you so happy and you will smile. There's even a waiter serving them their breakfast. And you should see there two gold platters, personalized bowls with their food, and it is so much fun to watch these little reels.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, I didn't cruise. So I didn't actually go on my first cruise until I was in my 40s. And I absolutely love cruising now. And so I thank my husband and his family for really getting me into cruising. But I think there's a lot of people like that where they think they're not going to like cruising. And there's really no reason for them to try cruising. And so I want to like push some of you listening, if you are that kind of a person who kind of turns their nose up at cruising. And one of the reasons why I love cruising now is because it pushes you to do things that you wouldn't necessarily do on a vacation. And and I think Royal Caribbean does the best job of almost all the cruise ships at this one specific thing that I want to talk about, which is the shows, and having a big, beautiful auditorium. And you're sailing at night and getting to go to like almost like a Broadway musical. And the casting is, I mean, I think the demand for those positions is almost as good or high as being in a Broadway show. Is that correct? Like, how does that work? And how did you guys get to be so good at the production side?
Well, entertainment is definitely our hallmark. It's something that we have focused heavily on. And we like to say that we're the only cruise brand that has entertainment across 4 stages. So, of course, the main theater, the air, the ice, because we have the ice skating rinks, and then we also have the aqua theater and the aqua dome, the water shows.
Yeah.
And so when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to the main theater stages, we just introduced Back to the Future, the musical that it just actually left New York, but it's still in the West End. And there are like thousands of people that apply for these roles, and so talented.
So
Uh,
talented.
and so we're very lucky. We get a really great talent pool to pick from, professional singers and dancers and actors and performers. And so Back to the Future has been a huge, huge hit. We have a 16-piece live orchestra that plays with that show. So we don't believe in taped music on Royal Caribbean. We like live music, whether it's the dueling piano bars or boleros or, the schooner bar. Live music to us is what really makes the energy and the feeling come alive. And then last year when we introduced Icon, we have Wizard of Oz, which is also a huge hit. So, and we of course have other shows, Saturday Night Fever, we have Hairspray, we have so many Broadway shows. But in
Wow.
addition to the Broadway shows, we do have lots and lots of other entertainment on board.
Yeah. Yeah. And my experience, I've sailed on several Royal Caribbean itineraries, and the entertainment has always been absolutely top notch. I'm always so impressed. My daughter did musical theater and she's always been so impressed with the talent. It's just, and every once in a while we've been able to talk to them. You run into a cast member while you're, I don't know, just interacting, and you get to talk to them about what that life is like. And it's a really, I mean, they love it. They have, talk about chief dog handler being the best job. But if you are in musical theater, this is one of the best jobs in the world, because you get to do what you love and you get to travel the world while you're doing it. And yeah, so that's unbelievably exciting. let's talk a little bit about the luxury side of Royal Caribbean. I have experienced it myself. I think my favorite example is we took celebrated my husband's 50th birthday on the wonder of the seas, and we stayed in suites. And it is you guys have done such a great job with elevating the suite experience, and so the cabin itself is really roomy and spacious and feels incredibly luxurious. I love how you put the suites all on the top two decks, so that you're kind of like in your own space. You're not mixed with non-suite cabins. And then you give us access to a restaurant, a concierge lounge, and I can't remember if there's a pool or not, for the
On some
suite.
on some ships there are. So on
On
the
some ships.
Icon and Star, we do have a pool area just for the suite guests, where
Yeah.
you're and a restaurant, two restaurants actually. We have the Grove, which is a casual lunch restaurant, and you can get coffee and drinks during the daytime. And then we have Coastal Kitchen, which is a beautiful breakfast, lunch, and dinner restaurant.
Yeah. Which is, it's such a fantastic option for like those multi-gen families where you have some that can't necessarily afford the upgrade, but then you have others that are like, do I really want to, go stay at in a regular cabin? No, I actually have the option to get the elevated service and the elevated experience in the suite area. And what's also nice is like you kind of feel like you escape the mayhem, the busyness of the 3, 4, 5,000 person cruise ship. So you really can get a luxury experience, but get all the bells and whistles of being on a large cruise ship. So that's always been a fun way for us to travel as a family. I want to take the conversation into a little bit of a different direction. What's something about your job that would surprise people?
That's a good question. I don't know. What would a surprise?
I mean, you have this really polished executive image, friendly, the face of Royal Caribbean to the travel advisor community. Maybe the surprise is that you're no different in person.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's really it. I think our brand, and I like to treat people with kindness. And I think when you're kind to people, I like to always think about how do we want to be treated. And so, I want to treat people how I think they want to be treated too. I mean, just the other day we were talking with Michael Bailey and his team about compassion, and that we don't look at things as black and white. We try to listen to the situation and think, let's show some compassion. And this really comes from our leadership from Michael Bailey. And so recently, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, a travel partner told her clients to call me because the clients had to cancel 2 days before their cruise. They were going on Utopia of the Seas, and there were several rooms that they were booked in, and they didn't buy travel insurance. It was a very big family vacation. And the travel advisor said, call Vicki Freed. Maybe she'll help you with some kind of a refund or a future cruise credit. And I was talking to Melissa, the mother, and she was telling me about her 14-year-old daughter that tried to commit suicide 2 days before the cruise. And it was like a blended family. It was his, hers, and their kids were all going to go. And she goes, we had everything packed, Vicki. We had the suntan lotion. And, your heart breaks at something like that. As a parent, you think, oh my gosh. And I said, Melissa, what can I do for you? What can I do for your family? She goes, well, I know I didn't buy insurance, but we were wondering if we could just go on a replacement cruise at some point. I said, 100%. We will give you a future cruise credit for all the rooms. Normally we say they would like them to be used within a year, but if you want, I'll just say a 2-year period. And we said, you just tell us how we can help you and be with your family right now. The cruise is the
Mm,
last thing you should be worried about. And the fact the 2 rooms went out empty, but that was okay. We can afford that to happen to us. We're a big company, and while we don't like losing revenue, this is a mom that almost lost a child through an
yeah.
attempted suicide, and she and I have been keeping in touch with one another. And she just wrote me, I've been asking her how her daughter's doing, and she says, well, the doctor and the therapist thinks we might be ready to cruise. And now today she wrote me, and because I said that when you come back on Royal Caribbean, we want to have a family photo that we are going to comp of your entire family. We want to take this as your special memory. And so just let us know when you booked. So she went back to her travel advisor. They used the future cruise credits. They made the booking. And then Melissa, the mom, wrote to me today and said, we're booked. We're ready. And I'm so
Oh,
excited.
cool.
And we are going to have these photographers take pictures and more pictures and make this such a special family vacation, because my goodness, the kind of stress that their family just went through, we can bring a little joy into their lives.
I love that story for many reasons. Obviously, I do think it very accurately illustrates that, Royal Caribbean is really focused on kindness first. But I also think it illustrates the importance of bringing it back home, having deep vetted relationships with your partners. If you are selling travel, or if you're listening to this podcast and you're considering this profession, you absolutely want to choose a host that has deep vetted relationships with the partners that you're going to sell. And so if you want to sell Royal Caribbean, you want to make sure that your host has a great relationship with Royal Caribbean and can pick up the phone and call Vicki Freed and say, hey, Vicki, I have a client. Can you help with this? And that's exactly what happened. And I'm not saying GTM's the only one that does. You have done an amazing job of developing relationships with all of great host agencies. So I just, little public tip out there is do your homework in choosing your home. Absolutely do your homework in choosing your home. So on that topic, we talk a lot about the emotional fitness that is required when you become an entrepreneur, and you've managed, massive responsibility and countless relationships. So how do you handle the pressure and stress that comes with that level of leadership?
Oh, I don't know that any of us handle stress exceptionally well, but I recently read a book that a travel advisor suggested I read. It's called Let Them by Mel Robbins,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
has it
Mhm.
has been life-changing for me. It just tells you you can't control other people's feelings. You can
Mhm.
only control how you respond to that. And that book has really changed my life. I have one of my adult sons who just read it because he was having stress with his boss, and and he says, Mom, this book is amazing. And so
Mhm.
you just realize the things that you can control, you can control, and the things you
Yeah.
can't, you just have to let them
Yeah.
be. So I'm very fortunate in my life because I'm surrounded by a lot of wonderful people I work with, my family, my husband, my kids, my friends. And so I'm very grateful for everything that I have in my life. And I try
Yeah.
to give back. That was one of the things I learned from my mentor, Bob Dickinson, my original mentor and still my good friend, is, you don't get to choose your gene pool. And so there
Right.
are a lot of people out there who are either homeless or, just down and out. And you just have to be really kind to those people because you just never know what their fate in life is. And aren't
Yeah.
we so grateful, Meredith? We have beautiful
Yeah.
lives. We have been educated. We have good
Yeah.
families. And
Yeah.
I recently met somebody on an airplane. I was on Southwest. And if you've ever known Southwest, you board either A, B, or C. And then there's 60 seats in every grouping. And I would change my flight from Nashville instead of Fort Lauderdale, Nashville to West Palm Beach so I could get home earlier. So I was C59.
Oh
Second
gosh.
to, and you know what? It was a blessing. It was truly a blessing. I was in the middle seat. I sat next to a young lady and we started talking, and she was telling me she was in rehab and she'd been 100 days clean from fentanyl and
Wow.
heroin, 25 years old. And
Wow.
what an inspiration to me
Yeah.
to meet someone so special as Jade. And I pray for her every night. And she was just moving to a new rehab here. And in fact, I would just text her dad. I gave her my number. She wanted my number. I could see she was journaling, and I wasn't really quite sure. Most people who journal, that's part of therapy. And
Yes.
she asked for my number because I did give her some money so she could buy a scooter. And I did not get her phone number or anything. But then I got off the plane and I went my way. She went to meet the people that were picking her up for this new facility she was going to. And I kept saying, Jade, you've got this. You're 25 years old. You got
Yeah.
a big, beautiful life ahead of you. You can do it. I know. She goes, but Vicki, this is my 24th time.
Ugh.
And in rehab, I said, but you got it. I can tell. I can look at you, and I'm a good judge of people. And so her father, she had my phone number in her book, in her journal, and her father texted me a little bit later, and he said, can you talk? And I thought, uh-oh, he's going to be mad that I gave her money for her scooter, because that's all she wanted was one of those electric scooters so she could get around. And he called me, and he goes, Jade told me that she met an angel on the plane and how special you are, and I
Oh.
want to Venmo you the money. I said, oh, no, 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 you got this wrong. First of all, you're not giving me the money back. And second of all, I met an angel, and that is your daughter. And
Oh.
we started talking, and we're all so lucky to be where we are and to be able to do things for other people. And I just think in life, that's the best gift you can have, is to know that you've made a difference in someone else's life. And hopefully I work really hard to do that, whether it's travel advisors, whether it's my friends, families, or even strangers that I meet on the
Yeah.
Southwest plane. I want to try and make a difference in other people's lives.
So you just articulated a message, and through that answer, that I was actually sharing with my son this morning. So my youngest son, 18 years old, we dropped him off at college over the weekend, 4 hours away. And he's already homesick. He really
Oh,
struggled. And so I like, he's excited and having a great time, but he was also very clear and aware of the fact that he was going to struggle with saying goodbye to us, because he loves the life that he has, and um, so I wrote him this message this morning, and I basically said that it's experiences like this that give you the opportunity to develop mental muscles that are going to serve you for the rest of your life. And I even thought of the let them theory, as that's exactly what I'm explaining to him. Is the let them theory is a mental muscle. It's just a mental muscle. And
yeah.
the only way to develop a muscle is to practice it. And so you have to be given opportunities to practice it, to develop it. And I also said to him, like, when you feel homesick or when you feel sad or like you're missing something, friends or family, just bring curiosity and openness to your thought process, and be forward thinking instead of past thinking. And then I also said exactly what you just said again, which is another way to do that is to be appreciative of what you do have. Bring
Mhm.
gratefulness to what can you be grateful about in this moment, and just learn how to shift out of that sadness and into something a little bit better. And that's a mental muscle. And so I think your answer is really, you've, without even maybe realizing it, have developed some very solid mental muscles. And that's how you handle stress. It's that simple, right?
Yeah, I think it probably is how I handle stress, because
Mhm.
I do like to be kind to other people. And then I hear I have three kids, and I always worked when I had my children. And so I was very lucky that my kids all turned out really nice, to be nice individuals. And, um, I remember I have my youngest son who lives in Las Vegas, and there's some homeless in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And he would walk across, he lived on the strip in an apartment building when he first moved there. And he would walk on the bridges that instead of crossing on the crosswalk. And he always saw this homeless woman just sitting there. And one day he said, "You look like you're really cold." She goes, "I am." And he took off his jacket and he gave it to
Oh,
her. And then he goes, "Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" And so he did, and she she didn't even know what to put in the coffee. He says cream and
yeah.
sugar, and she goes, "I don't know." And so then he came back and he said, "And Mom, I gave her a donut too, because you can't have coffee without a donut." And I was just like, so proud of my son that he gave up his
Right.
coat.
Yeah.
He went and bought, and my son didn't make a lot of money, but he bought her a cup of coffee with cream and sugar, and he gave her a
And a
donut,
donut
and it was all good, you know. And if we can
because you
teach,
modeled that.
we've got to teach our children that we
Yeah.
are so lucky for the things that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is a great place to end it. And one final question, which is, in that spirit of being grateful for what you do have, what do you think is the like what are you so most grateful for when it comes to this career that you've built for yourself?
I think the thing I'm most grateful for are not just the people that I've met through this journey of an amazing career in travel, but the difference that all of us, travel advisors, me,
Yeah.
all of us make to create incredible memories and experiences for people. Because really, at the end of the day, no one is going to remember that they bought the first iPhone when it came out. They're going to remember the time that they shared with their friends, their family, and those memories are priceless. And I'll leave you with my thought. I've always believed that travel advisors are MDs. And you're probably thinking, we're not medical doctors, but you are memory doctors. And you create
Mm,
amazing memories for people in their lives that they will never forget. So
yeah.
never discount the role that you play, because it's a super important role.
I completely agree. And I say the same thing. So thank you, Vicki Freed, for your time today and your wisdom and sharing. And it's been a pleasure to have you as a guest on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meredith. Thanks for asking me.